Hello and welcome to Jack and the Book Stack, where I talk about a wide variety of book genres and the bookish lifestyle. When I say a variety of book genres, I really mean it, because as you can tell by the title of this video, I want to talk about nonfiction books today. It is Nonfiction November. A lot of bookworms are looking for recommendations, and so I thought this was just perfect timing to talk about my favorite nonfiction books and the nonfiction books at the top of my TBR. Before I talk about myself, though, I want to hear from you in the comments down below. Do you enjoy nonfiction? If so, what are some of your favorites, or what are some that have caught your eye that you want to read soon? Now let's get started with my top 5 favorite nonfictions. I feel like my number 5 favorite is going to be a little bit controversial, so don't X out of the video, let me explain. It is 48 Laws of Power. And the reason I say that this one is controversial is because Jack Edwards, one of my favorite booktubers, broke my heart because he just posted a video completely shredding this book and anyone who enjoys it. And I get where he's coming from, but I do think he was much too harsh and judgmental. And I also look at this book from a completely different perspective. It's also not a great endorsement that this book, often described as chicken soup for the soulless, is Kanye West's favorite book. So that makes me really hesitant to love it, but I really just want a chance to explain. If you take this book literally, it is like a hand guide for being a villain. There are 48 laws of how to screw people over, basically, and be powerful. I find that perspective incredibly creative, and from a psychological perspective, I always think it's interesting what goes into being evil. How are people able to accomplish these great evil feats? So going through the manipulations, even though it's described as like a how-to guide, I think is really interesting and insightful. What I found incredibly captivating about this book is that there are historical examples to support all of the laws of power in this book. Now, these aren't great people, okay? These are not the heroes of the story. These are the villains. They are dictators. They cause harm. They kill a lot of people. So it is written as like a how-to guide for those people, but I don't take it literally. I take it as the creative spin and how these people were able to accomplish such great evil. Also, one of Jack's criticisms is that a lot of the laws contradict each other, and that didn't bother me. Of course, it's very obvious that they contradict each other, but there's a lot of different ways to achieve evil, and sometimes it's a combination thing. Sometimes it depends on the scenario. So I don't think you're supposed to do all 48 laws. I don't think each dictator followed 1 through 48. They probably picked and chose. So I don't necessarily agree with Jack's video, and he was just so harsh, saying that he wouldn't trust your judgment if you recommended this or liked this. I was like, don't look at me. Let me read you some of the laws to give you an idea what I'm talking about here. Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use your enemies. Kind of keep your friends close but your enemies closer kind of vibe. So much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life. Win through your actions, never through an argument. Learn to keep people dependent on you. Crush your enemy totally. And we don't have enemies, a lot of us. I mean, people might claim they have haters. I'm not important enough to have haters. But enemies is a childish concept. I get it, Jack Edwards. But again, don't take this too literally. I really enjoyed this, and I actually don't like history books or reading history. So the fact that this captivated me and interested me, maybe because it was evil. I don't know. I don't know what this says about me. I'm questioning myself, everything I know. But if you're interested in that alternate perspective, I'm going to link Jack's video below so you can check it out. Number 4 on my favorites list is Educated, a memoir by Tara Westover. And I loved this because I loved the insight and perspective on how other people live that are very, very different from me, very different belief system. And also the importance of education. I think that I took it for granted. I always viewed education as a way to get a diploma, get a job, and be secure. But the very, very basics of what education provides us, I was shocked. This is also a great recommendation for readers who prefer fiction but want to try nonfiction. Some memoirs and biographies I find very dry, but this is so outrageous and it's told in a way that feels like you're just reading a fiction story. Maybe because a lot of it is so hard to believe, but it is a great choice. Let me read a little bit from the inside flap to tell you what it's about. Tara Westover was 17 the first time she set foot in a classroom. Born to survivalists in the mountains of Idaho, she prepared for the end of the world by stockpiling home-canned peaches and sleeping with her head-for-the-hills bag. The family was so isolated from mainstream society that there was no one to ensure the children received an education and no one to intervene when an older brother became violent. Educated is an account of the struggle for self-invention. It is a tale of fierce family loyalty and of the grief that comes with severing one's closest ties. With the acute insight that distinguishes all great writers, Westover has crafted a universal coming-of-age story that gets to the heart of what an education is and what it offers. The perspective to see one's life through new eyes and the will to change it. It is so good. The scene where she finally goes to school and starts learning about the world, things that she had never heard of or had no concept of. It was just wild to me. This was a great book. And again, giving you the insight into others and understanding people, feeling grateful for what you have in your own life, is a great side effect of reading nonfiction. Next up is a book on behavioral economics called Predictably Irrational: The Hidden Forces That Shape Our Decisions. And this is exactly what the title says. I loved reading this and seeing what subconscious things are influencing my decisions and my purchases. I was shocked. I fall victim to most of the things in this book. Let me read you some of the titles for the chapters to give you an idea what this book explores. Why we often pay too much when we pay nothing. Why we are happy to do things, but not when we're paid to do them. Why we overvalue what we have. Why options distract us from our main objective. Why the mind gets what it expects. Why a 50-cent aspirin can do what a penny aspirin can't. This book was so insightful and relevant to my everyday life. Predictably Irrational is a book that I have read 3 times. I've highlighted it like crazy. It is often a book I will revisit in the future, I'm sure. My second favorite book also comes with a disclaimer. The book is Unshakable: Your Financial Freedom Playbook, Creating Peace of Mind in a World of Volatility by Tony Robbins. The disclaimer on this one is that I can't stand Tony Robbins. In fact, I dislike a lot of self-help gurus. I think they exploit the insecurities of others for their own financial benefit. And in addition to that, he just makes me cringe when he talks. I can't stand him. The other disclaimer I have is that I actually have my bachelor's degree in international finance. So I have an understanding of finance, and I also have a particular interest in it. But the reason this book is my second favorite nonfiction is that it takes financial concepts and really breaks them down into layman's terms and makes it relevant. I think a lot of us in our age groups, we've seen a lot of crazy economic environments. We've seen the stock market crash. We've seen the housing market crash. We've seen the stock market crash again. So I think there can be a lot of misconceptions about investing. And so this book really dives into the truth of it and how the real danger is not investing at all. It makes you as the reader feel, I can do this, I can invest, and I should invest. Very motivating, very inspiring. There are 2 concepts in this book that I think are hugely impactful and very important. In fact, they're the cornerstone of my own investing strategies. But firstly, there is dollar cost averaging. Pretty much not worrying about when the market is high or low, when to buy and sell. It's investing kind of how a lot of us do with our 401ks. You invest equal amounts in equal time frames. 401ks, we kind of do it when we get paid. So every 2 weeks or twice a month. Sometimes you can dollar cost average once a quarter, which is what I do, once a year, twice a year, whatever. It's just regular intervals of investing, not worrying about high, low, buy, sell, and you are just consistent. Consistency is more important than timing. The second concept you learn about in this book is index funds. So you don't have to worry about which company to buy, that kind of gambling mentality of like which one's going to be the next big win. An index fund is a collection of many companies that share a characteristic. So the S&P 500 is a term that maybe you've heard of. That is the 500 largest US companies. So when you buy into the S&P 500, you're buying into 500 companies. So if one goes belly up, you're protected because you have several more. So those are some of the concepts you learn about in this book. And I think this is crucial, even if you don't have an interest in finance, like I do. I have lent this to my mom, my boyfriend, my friends, and they've all really gotten value out of it. And most of them actually go start investing right after they finish this. So please check this one out. I think it is very important to get the fundamentals of investing for a better future. My number one favorite nonfiction book that I have ever read is one that changed my life because it helped me understand me. That book is Quiet: The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. I actually always thought that I was an extrovert because I am very outgoing. I'm not shy. This book taught me that there is a huge difference from being shy and being an introvert. I had no idea. I always felt pressure to do things that everyone else was doing, even though it made me uncomfortable and really taxed me and drained me. And I just thought something was wrong with me. And this book really taught me how I'm actually leaning more towards being an introvert, because it's not black and white. Extroverts, introverts, it's like a scale. So I lean more introvert, and what that means for me, how I recharge my batteries, how I relate to people, the best social settings for me. And it's funny now because I identify as an introvert now, and I tell people that, and they say, no way, you're so talkative, you're so outgoing, you can talk to anyone, you present so much at work, you're like a public speaker, and yet I am an introvert. So this book was amazing and groundbreaking and taught me so much. And I feel so much more acceptance for myself and also recognizing what I need and how to recharge, like I mentioned. So Quiet is my favorite nonfiction book. Now I want to talk about the 5 nonfiction books at the very top of my TBR, and I am going to use my iPad to read you some of the descriptions from GoodReads. Not too much because I don't want to spoil it, but just enough to tell you a little bit about what it's about. Number 5 on my nonfiction TBR is Cultish: The Language of Fanaticism. The author of the widely praised Word Slut analyzes the social science of cult influence, how cultish groups from Jonestown and Scientology to SoulCycle and social media gurus use language as the ultimate form of power. What makes cults so intriguing and frightening? What makes them powerful? The reason why so many of us binge Manson documentaries by the dozen and fall down rabbit holes researching suburban moms gone QAnon is because we're looking for a satisfying explanation for what causes people to join, and more importantly, stay in extreme groups. We secretly want to know, could it happen to me? You can see a trend in my interest for nonfiction. When I talked about my favorite ones, Predictably Irrational and 48 Laws of Power, I'm really interested in the psychological elements behind our decisions and the decisions of others. And so Cultish seems like it will also provide me with that insight, how we get involved in these and how we are manipulated and influenced. Really excited to check that one out. Number 4 on my list for nonfiction books I want to read is one that I learned about from the channel Katie Colson. This one is called Ace: What Asexuality Reveals About Desire, Society, and the Meaning of Sex. On GoodReads, it says this is an engaging exploration of what it means to be asexual in a world that's obsessed with sexual attraction and what we can all learn about desire and identity by using an ace lens to see the world. What exactly is sexual attraction, and what is it like to go through the world not experiencing it? What does asexuality reveal about consent, about compromise, about the structures of society? This is going to be great. When I talked about the books that I loved from nonfiction, With educated, I said I love the insight into people different from myself and learning more about people. And I think ACE is going to give me another perspective that I don't know much about. Number 3 on my list is a book called The Omnivore's Dilemma, A Natural History of 4 Meals. America is suffering from what can only be described as a national eating disorder. Will it be fast food tonight or something organic? Or perhaps something we grew ourselves? The question of what to have for dinner has confronted us since man first discovered fire. How we answer it now, at the dawn of the 21st century, may determine our survival as a species. Packed with profound surprises, The Omnivore's Dilemma is changing the way Americans think about the politics, perils, and pleasures of eating. This is one that kind of caught my attention because it's not something I've ever considered before, but in recent years, I have become a strong believer of how what we eat impacts our overall health, energy levels, things that we would never expect. So I'm interested to read this, learn more about it, and also kind of the society perspective of food and how we approach it. So really looking forward to learning more in that book. Number 2 on my nonfiction TBR is In the Dream House. This is a memoir, and GoodReads says, for years, Carmen Maria Machado has struggled to articulate her experiences in an abusive same-sex relationship. In this extraordinarily candid and radically inventive memoir, Machado tackles a dark and difficult subject with wit, inventiveness, and an inquiring spirit as she uses a series of narrative tropes, including the classic horror themes, to create an entirely unique piece of work which is destined to become an instant classic. I think that's really interesting. Firstly, the dynamics of a same-sex abusive relationship, but then also the elements of like common horror tropes. I'm curious to see how this plays out, so I'm dying to check out this memoir. Finally, the number 1 book on my nonfiction TBR, the one that I'm most excited for, is Vanderbilt, The Rise and Fall of an American Dynasty. So I want to read you the description first, but then I want to tell you why I want to read this, because I wonder if I can convince you too. When 11-year-old Cornelius Vanderbilt began to work on his father's small boat ferrying supplies in New York Harbor at the beginning of the 19th century, no one could have imagined that one day he would, through ruthlessness, cunning, and pathological desire for money, build 2 empires, one in shipping and another in railroads, that would make him the richest man in America. His staggering fortune was fought over by his heirs after his death in 1877, sowing familial discord that would never fully heal. Though his son Billy doubled the money left by the Commodore, subsequent generations competed to find new and ever more extraordinary ways of spending it. The reason I am dying to learn more about the Vanderbilts is because Cornelius's grandson, named George, is the one who built the Biltmore House in North Carolina, I believe. And I am dying to see this estate. It looks amazing. And particularly, I want to see this library. This library looks like it came from my dreams. And there are 23,000 books in this library across all sorts of different languages. I guess what George would do is he would send his favorite books to a bookbinder, and they would rebind them in Moroccan leather with gilt lettering on the sides. And so all these were like custom made books for him. Can you imagine? Can you imagine having so much money that all of your favorite books you could have custom bound for you and displayed in your library? This is insane. But when that summary is talking about new creative ways to extraordinarily spend the wealth, I'm dying to know what other ways they did that, because custom-made books might be one of them. I'm not saying it's a waste, I'm saying I understand. There you have it. Those are my 5 favorite nonfiction books and the 5 nonfiction books that I am dying to read next. Hopefully I'll be able to read some of these during Nonfiction November. I think as the mood strikes, I will pick some of these up. There's a great variety in there that I can read and learn from, and I love nonfiction because I'm able to learn and understand people and understand myself. So I love picking up nonfiction from time to time. Thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.